Ready to get started, everybody?
Yep, getting rid of myself and muting.
Okay.
All right, we acknowledge the land on which we are connecting through as part of the traditional territory of the Chippewa, Ottawa, Potawatomi, and Delaware nations.
Got it.
Oh, geez. One day.
Okay, so in this session, we're going to start, we're going to have our experienced teachers, and I see Lisa Denboer is in here, and she is also an experienced online teacher. So we're going to have, I'm hoping Lisa will join in. I know she has before, so hopefully she will again today. And we have some teachers here to help us, and we're going to talk about these items listed here. So first, addressing challenging events. As we all know, there was some big event last night, so we're going to talk a little bit about how to address challenging events when you're a classroom teacher and also online teacher. Virtual teachers who are leading, who have been doing some stuff to support us, we're going to talk about the things they've done. Mike is going to share about extensions that he's added onto his Chrome toolbar, I think. Is that right, Mike?
Yeah, whatever you need me to do. Yeah, I'm kind of prepared for anything. So.
And then questions for our virtual teachers, and then talking about stamina, and then also the provincial direction that we anticipate at 3 o'clock, which should be happening right now.
So we'd like to welcome Mike. We're really grateful to have him here today. He is what we call our expert. He's been doing this since September, so we'd love to hear what he has to say. So welcome, Mike.
Thanks for having me.
So we are going to talk about challenging events. And so I'm sure everybody knows, and if you haven't heard, news events that were happening last night in Washington. This is how this come about, this topic today. As teachers, we're often heading into a classroom with something significant, like it happens, I feel like it's happened a lot lately. We're heading into the classroom with some significant things that have happened and it's been passed out on the news. And so how do we do that? How do we address those things in the most appropriate way and supportive way with our students? So we're going to take a moment to talk about those things. And then we're going to hear from Mike and maybe hopefully Lisa, how that went in their class today. We have some tips that were passed on to us from Katie Calamico and Christine Davenport via our superintendent, Mr. Hazard. So we're hoping we've done some justice to the tips that were passed on. So we're going to share those with you next.
So one of the tips that they shared with us is to begin with your own self-awareness. So when times are difficult, we have to give space to our students to allow for them to share what they're feeling. I mean, this is a grade 5-6 group, but we think of our young ones. If the TV's on and blaring with things that they can't understand, it's a good place to make aware of what we're seeing as well. So what are our emotions and reactions to this event? So what did you perceive, and making sure that you give yourself that opportunity and allow yourself that space.
Yeah, to like reflect on how is this impacting you and how are you perceiving this event? Because we're all going to perceive the event in a different way, and how we perceive it will influence how we present it. And so just really being self-aware, how we take that on. And I know Pam pointed out in a conversation today that even within the news yesterday, that if she was flipping to different channels, they were presenting it in different ways. And so being aware of your feelings and how that provoked, how that provoked your feelings, so that you're, cautious of how you're sharing in the classroom. So then allowing for sharing and connecting to occur, like Teresa just said, like students are witnessing and hearing things, and giving space for them to share their thoughts and their feelings, and allow them to hear others and connect with others and what they're going through.
Listen to understand and validate or reinforce that they've been heard. We might not agree with what we hear from some students. I mean, viewpoints are always different. Just making sure that that you know that they're being heard is super important.
Mhm. Yeah, and like we can just say like, you know, even if it's something we don't agree with, but this is what a student is saying that how they feel, we can just repeat it back and say like, oh, so you're feeling this. That allows them to feel heard versus us saying, yes, like, yeah, that you should be feeling that way. Like we're allowing them to feel heard, even if it's something we're not necessarily different agreeing with.
Sorry, my daughter's just needing my help. 1 second.
That's okay.
Which one are we
You want
from?
me to go? Remain factual.
I'll just do it.
Yeah, cool.
So
Okay. Oh, sorry.
think about the words that you choose is important when you're remaining factual. So like what exactly happened and like talking about the event because we could be, you know, we could say that Trump supporters were rallying. We could say that there were rioters. We could say that there was a mob or there was a group of people that came to the Capitol and entered and breached the building. So like you think about the choice of words that you're using and make sure that it's factual.
So emphasizing self-care is super important again. You want to make sure that your students see that you are taking care of yourself as well. So, and the importance of it. So showing them that it's important, like I see a lot in my kids' Google Meets, they're doing a lot of meditation or whatever it is. There's breaks or just taking care of yourself and making sure that, you know, that is a priority.
Yeah, like being able to remain silent on something if they don't want to talk about it or sharing if they want to talk about it or going and taking a break because it was a lot to hear and a lot to discuss. So I know we talked about this earlier, Teresa, and how the virtual teachers, we've noticed that they just allow students to just type in, hey, we're just taking a break, or I'm going to the bathroom, or I'm going to get a drink, just typing in and not asking permission, just having the ability to make those choices what they need in the moment. And so providing an opportunity for check-in, like within a smaller group or one-to-one if needed as well. So, you know, you might be doing a whole class, but then allowing for an opportunity for them to have a conversation on the side. I know we do that in the bricks and mortar schools all the time, like something difficult's happened and then we say, hey, I'm here if anybody wants to come talk like on their lunch or whatever, because, you know, there's been difficult topics happening.
And to end with gratitude, appreciate the sharing. It could be difficult for some to share. Again, these kids could have family in the States right now, and who knows what they're going through or what they're hearing through that. So making sure you acknowledge how difficult that could be and try to end with a positive when you can.
Yeah. Leaving on a positive, like always kind of lifts them up, right? Like thinking towards the positive. So one best practice or two best practices that we thought it with regards to this was that leave the sharing of the images and the event the images of the event up to the parents. So we're not bringing the images up and showing them or letting the parents share those images if they want their children to see them. And then when the event is occurring or is fresh, like today and tomorrow, allowing time for processing and supporting, like kind of what we just described on that last slide, instead of making it into a full-blown lesson on the topic, giving them some time to process it first and make sense of it. You know, everybody comes at it with, we had a conversation this morning and everybody comes at difficult situations with a different perspective and different viewpoint. And, you know, what you anticipate students might experience from the event might be completely different from what they're actually experiencing. And you don't really know how people are or students are experiencing that. So giving some time for them to adjust to something that's been difficult.
As we're all aware, this learning is all happening within people's homes. So the caution that parents are present and may have different viewpoints on what we are sharing. And our virtual teachers can attest to this. Has this come up before, Mike? Or how have you dealt with this? And like, our parents, have you ever had issues with parents coming into your meets?
I guess I can talk a little bit. I've had, yes and no. So at the beginning of the year, we were talking a lot about the like anti-racism education piece. And we were talking about, I mean, these kids were coming back where they haven't been in a school since March. So a lot of the beginning of my year in language and social studies, we were talking about human rights and the Black Lives Matter movement. And it all fed into like Orange Shirt Day. That whole thing worked together because I was trying to connect parallels to, well, you know, racism exists, you know, in the States and in Canada. It gets a little bit different. It's not, and like certain people in Canada, like the First Nations people, you can kind of compare their troubles with the Black Lives Matters movement. So we talked a lot, I made a lot of connections like that. And for the most part, I got a lot of great responses. I actually got 3 or 4 emails from parents praising like how we were covering it and talking about it. One parent, they just recently moved back from the States, I think last year. So they're, you know, just talking about how like great that we actually talked about this stuff instead of swept it under the carpet. And I did have one parent though talk about how they didn't really appreciate it. So I had a phone conversation with them and we just talked it through, and kind of what we came to was that she would just like a heads up before we have a discussion on some controversial issues. So that's kind of like the point we came to. So with this, I talked briefly to my students today. I just asked, you know, most of them had no idea what was going on because they're too busy playing video games. I think only one of them had heard of it. So I imagine they'll hear more of it tonight. And we'll talk a little bit about it more tomorrow once I kind of have a chance to figure out exactly how I want to process it and talk with them. And I've sent an email to that mom that as per her request. So I kind of gave myself today to kind of like just let it sit. And like you guys said, give yourself time. And then tomorrow we'll talk a little bit more about it and make some connections to like the anti-racism education and things on those lines. So I've kind of mostly positive, but every once in a while, right, you are going to get a parent who maybe feels like that shouldn't be in the classroom, and you just kind of, if you are kind of following those steps and you know you're doing right, usually by the time if you just talk face to face or on the phone, I guess, they usually come to some sort of understanding. But yeah, it is a thing to kind of get used to. If we get into more online learning, you kind of forget that usually parents are kind of kicking around, even if they're not on screen, they're in the next room and they can hear you. And so you have to be kind of, you know, extra aware, you know, if you try and make that, maybe check that sarcasm a little bit more than you might usually or something along those lines. But I think all of us were pretty good teachers, and I think it's really, the parents have really seen, I think it's been more positive for the parents because they kind of see the work we put in and how much we care and what we're doing, and they're getting to hear it firsthand. And so for the most part, it's been complimentary. Like most of the time I get parents saying how they appreciate things. So yeah, it is something kind of you have to keep in the back of your mind that parents are around and with an earshot, whether they're working from home too or whatever. But yeah.
Yeah. What about like students having their cameras on or mics unmuted? Have you had any issues with that with like parents?
Once I had a parent freak out about juice boxes and dropped an F-bomb while the pork is like, I mean, the kid's on for 15 seconds sharing an answer, just happened to be bad luck. And the kid was more embarrassed than anything. And you just kind of like, don't worry about it. Like these things happen. She like muted right away when she heard it. And I've had one student forget to put a shirt on this morning. So that was always nice. You're like, what are you doing? Like, get dressed. So I just booted him out of the meeting and just wrote an email to his mom, just letting him know I got booted out and he can come back on once he's dressed.
Mm-hmm. I had a student show up in a bathing suit yesterday because they're currently in Costa Rica.
Oh.
That brought up some interesting discussions that were a little difficult.
I bet, yeah.
I bet. Like they're really in Costa Rica right now.
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
I wish I could be a student learning from Costa Rica.
I wish I could be a teacher teaching from Costa Rica.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so there are privacy issues, right? Like that's hard for, that one child in your class created a whole discussion on, wow. And so like, how do you handle it? How did you handle it? Like, that's a hard.
Basically it came down to, we had a discussion about what does it mean when the government provides recommendations And what does that mean in terms of enforcement? So we all know what the COVID recommendations are. But I think the kids were a little shocked to realize that nobody's actually enforcing those, and that you have a choice and you can get on a plane and go anywhere in the world. And you have the right to make that choice, but you also have the right to disagree with that choice. And then we had to talk about how can you say those things in a diplomatic and respectful way. And I mean, they were quite upset with her. So we had to take a little bit of time and talk about how do we disagree respectfully.
Wow.
And we came out of it okay, but it was shocking because I didn't know it was gonna, like, I didn't know she was there.
Yeah, no
So
problem.
it just, like, out of the blue, she popped on for the first time all week in her bathing suit by the pool. So
Yeah. You know, like that's an incredible example, Lisa, though, of how you took a situation, you stuck to the facts, and you created a learning opportunity for all the students, like changing that around to be like, how can we disagree respectfully and, you know, develop some skills, right? That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's such a good example to share. Thank you.
And it came back in this morning's discussion because, I mean, yesterday's events came up today too. And we did have a differing opinion that I had a student come into the chat and say, you know, Trump's not all bad. And then we had to talk about, then we got into the discussion of the bias in the media and how you, depending on where you get your information, depends on how you view it, right? So that actually turned into a really interesting conversation. But I'm glad that we had the ability to preface that the day before with how to talk respectfully about differences.
And like
We got really lucky that way.
Definitely.
happen with adults. Right?
Yeah.
Or a teacher within their home having to hold a conversation that you know parents are listening in on. That's so sticking to the facts and talking about being respectful, and thank you. That's great to hear.
It is very awkward knowing that parents are in the background listening.
Yeah. And you know what I've heard though, like I've heard so much support from parents about the virtual teachers though, and like understanding like that, you know, they have so many students and so much to deal with, and that the way that the teachers handle conversations is like, actually, I feel like all of this is doing a lot for us as educators to show like, you know, it's not just a simple job that we have. We're helping to build student character, and we're dealing with difficult conversations, and you know, there's a lot to teaching.
It's been an eye-opening experience for parents, I think, and in a positive way for educators.
Yes, I think so too. Yeah. And you know, nobody's perfect, and if you do make a mistake, like, have you made any mistakes? Like, I would think you would just, you know, apologize and say, like, because it happens all the time. We're people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And just say, hey, yeah, I probably could have went about it this way instead, and I'm sorry. You know, I think it goes a long way if we make a mistake to own up to it. And
well, it models what we want the students to do, right? Like, I can't expect them to do any differently if I'm not providing that opportunity to watch me do it, right? So I think it's really important to be honest and apologize and talk about it, because that's how we learn, right? We tell our kids that we want them to learn from their mistakes, so we need to be doing the same thing.
yeah. All right, anything else we want to talk about here? About being in other people's homes?
Yeah, just kind of keep it in the back of your mind. But I don't know, we're all professional here, and I think just like we've been saying, like it's not just virtual teachers. Like in-class teachers do the same. You have these same conversations in the class,
Yep.
whether you're standing in front of them or you're on a screen, right? Like you'll be fine.
We have Teen has joined us, and I was hoping he could be our news anchor. So, oops, I don't know.
Hey, team.
I'm gonna forward to the news bulletin that's about to happen from Teen to Go.
Breaking news, everybody. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be with you. I hope that everybody is healthy and happy and, dealing well with the challenges of today's today's world. So I'm just watching the CTV broadcast, and they've the chief medical officer for Ontario has made the announcement that remote learning will continue until the 25th. So two additional weeks of remote learning is the current announcement.
Well, thanks, Teen, for letting us know.
It's more opportunity for parents to get to see the craft of teaching. and I want to echo that is that that has been something very consistent with all of the parents that I've talked to, is that they are just really so impressed with the professionalism and the skill set of teachers and being able to so quickly adapt and respond to the needs of kids. And our district particularly, because we have such phenomenal virtual teachers, and you guys have taken the lead on learning and supporting our teachers, which is just, it's really done so much to help provide for a good experience for our students. So kudos to everybody.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, team, for sharing that. So I think, Teresa, we're just going to go to this and talk about this. Is that okay then?
Sure, yeah.
You're on
me
for a minute. If that's
okay. Where are we? Just give me 1 sec. I'll get there. So is this me? Yeah. Is anyone confused about the timing here? Because we've had a lot of questions about the 225 minutes. So we were just wanting to inquire and see if everybody is understanding that. Any questions about that? It's the teacher. Sorry?
They can unmute if they want, or they can.
Or you can throw it in the chat.
I know there's been discussions with face-to-face teachers going into virtual and how to figure out their timetable, because the 225 minutes doesn't align with their prep schedules. And then the curriculum partners, like it seems like it's a bit of a confusing time for that, trying to figure out how to actually schedule that.
Yes. And so that's why we've heard a lot of that too. And so that's why we thought, you know what, if this announced, we had this ready, we were waiting for Team to share. And so now that it has been announced and we know that it's going to be 2 more weeks, we thought maybe this would be a good point to clarify, because there were so many questions about this week. So the 225 minutes, it's 225 minutes of learning time. And so it's different for if your child is learning on demand or if they're having live. So I'm just going to go to that next slide. So when it's live, they're going to start with a whole class meet in the beginning of the day. That's what everybody's supposed to do. But then from there, the teacher's responsible to make sure that they are doing the attendance, right? And those designated by their principal and their division. And they have to follow any direction given there. But other than that, they're responsible to make sure that there's 225 minutes of learning, and that if you're providing live support to that group, because there'll be a group that's doing that and then a group that's doing on demand, the teacher needs to be available during that 225 minutes. Whether it's synchronous or asynchronous time, like it might start off as like, I start off a lesson, I'm doing 10 minutes of instruction, and then everybody can go work. I'm still there in the Google Meet available to support kids that have questions, to give some direction, to monitor their work. Maybe they're working on something that I can see all their screens. It's 225 minutes of the teacher being available to the students during their learning. So that's what the live support is. And we kind of put it in italics there so that, because I know that's where the confusion is. So if you have your prep time, right, and you count that in, because that's instructional time as well. So if your teacher was supposed to be there for 40 minutes, now that it's live and it's remote, it's now 30 minutes. So take off 30 minutes of the teaching time off that 225, and then you're left with the rest. And so the teacher is going to adjust that schedule and fit it in, as long as they're making it consistent so the students know exactly when and where they need to be. I think there is some flexibility and wiggle room in there for them.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
My interpretation was not that it was to take away the 30 minutes for the person who's on my prep, but to take away the whole thing. They're given, just like I'm given 225, they're also given some minutes for that they are like their prep. Do you not understand? How are
we might be saying the same thing or not. Like, so it's normally 300 minutes of instruction in a regular school day. That's been reduced to 75% for all students except for FDK. So their learning is not to exceed 225 minutes. Doesn't mean we're teaching to them directly all the time, but they're doing learning, they're doing instructional activities. What do you think, Teresa?
I was under the impression the same thing. So it would be, so if that teacher has 40 minutes, like you said, it would be 30, but you're the homeroom teacher.
You're cutting my prep by an extra 10 minutes. I'm not taking an extra 10 minutes off my prep.
But you'll be 10 minutes earlier in the day, right?
Unless your prep is in the end of the day.
Right.
And then your curriculum partner who provides that prep has to be in that at that time. Like this is where the miscommunication is happening, is do the curriculum partners have to keep to the same schedule? And if so, how do you like take out 25% of the time without losing your prep?
Yeah, I think, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
So the times have to stay the same, because the curriculum partner can't be like overlapped or double booked, right? Like they have to stay to those times unless there's a direction from the principal that it's going to be adjusted, right? However, if it were me, like I don't have the direction of a principal. I have like Mary Lynn and Ben's direction, right, as to what this is. So to me, I hear that there's flexibility in that. And so say the teacher has taught their, what would be, so if they're taking off 30 minutes, it would be 195 minutes already. And that ended at say the second lunch. The kids don't have to join in until the Google Meet with their teacher for French. That's how I would take it.
What I would suggest, I don't know if this helps, is try and like chunk it as much as you can. Like if you can chunk being, like for example, the way our schedule is a little bit different because we've been doing it since September, but we basically have 3 80-minute blocks and then an asynchronous time. And kind of how I pictured it, because I had a hard time on like what's asynchronous, what's synchronous, what's going on. I kind of pictured synchronous as like kind of like normal teaching, like you're doing your thing in front of the class, you're walking around, you're giving them time to work on their assignments, you're checking in on them, you're looking in on stuff. And then asynchronous times, kind of like you just sitting at the back of the classroom at the round table where they're kind of like working on something. So you're kind of around and available if they need help, but you're not directly kind of showing them anything, you're not teaching anything. I'm often like, because the grade sixes come in and they might need help with a little math, so they can come sit at like the back table with me and we go over questions with math, or they need help, or I need to talk to them about conferencing, like through a conference or something about language. So that's kind of what that asynchronous time, it's almost like you just get to like hang out picture yourself just hanging at the back table in your classroom, while synchronous time is you like just being a teacher, like up and around and talking. And then your prep time is you're out of the room. So you, like what I do now my students go to a different meet for French, but when the French teacher came in, I just turned my camera, my mic off and muted my computer. I just did my thing. So does that help? And then like, I don't know, like if your prep's at the end of the day, maybe your middle block is your asynchronous time and your synchronous at the beginning and at the end. It just, maybe that helps kind of like plan it all out.
I'm wondering if part of it is if it's been directed by individual principals slightly differently, and then teachers are getting different messages and talking to each other, and that's what's causing the confusion.
I would think that, yeah. And I was just going to say for my daughter's school, her teacher, because prep would be after lunch, her teacher dismisses the class about 10 minutes early. So I'm wondering if that's how she's making up that time, like Sally suggested for the prep. So if that's something that works too, where if it's around a break time, but I agree, Lisa, it might just be different messages and trying to figure that out. Hopefully we'll have a better understanding and we can take this to our team as well and see what they talked about and figure it out.
I would hope that the direction comes down board wide rather than individual schools. I think that will help tremendously.
Right.
And so my thought at the moment is we do have a board wide direction. It's memo 12, right? And so teachers reviewing that memo 12, and I'm certain the memo's gone through ATFO. Wouldn't you think, Teresa? I assume, I don't know.
I would not assume that.
Okay, so I don't know how that all works, but
yeah, I can't confidently say.
Consulting with your principal and, you know.
Because the 225 minutes originally came from the ministry, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like we have no flexibility on that. It's
for sure.
It's how you work within that 225.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's not like they have to be available 225 minutes to their students through live. But it's not directed in the memo specifically. So I don't know.
And I think that's the issue is they're like having been doing virtual for months now. I totally understand where they're coming from is how do you schedule that? How do you make those minutes work? How do you direct the kids? Like it is a bit like it's a lot to try and figure out.
And you need a consistent schedule, something that's easy for the kids to understand where they're supposed to be and when and how to access that. Yeah. Okay. So then if we go to this, so assigned activities online with the classroom, so that with, and then as we discussed, the curriculum partner, that Google Meet link, if they're either joining in and then taking over the class or the kids are going to a different Meet link, that's determined between the two teachers. And then the learning on demand is like emails, through messages through emails or Seesaw or Classroom. That's how they're going to be in contact with them. And the student completes their work at their own pace. And it's also still led by the teacher, but it's just not live in the moment. Okay, so I'm going to go out of there. Is there any more questions about that? And I'm sorry if I didn't give 100% clarity.
I'm not sure there is 100% clarity right now, Sally.
Well, hopefully it eased something.
I have another question.
Okay.
That we have the two options, and what I'm curious to know is if that will continue, because the kids that are on the second option where they don't come to the Google Meets and that, my students are doing absolutely nothing. And so our principal said, so long as their parents have gone for option 2, just kind of ignore it and carry on. And of course we were told to do review this week, which I didn't totally do, but you know, I couldn't because we'd finished off our math unit, had our end of test, you know, we're done. I'm not going back there right away. But what I'm concerned about is if they stay on option 2 and do absolutely nothing for the rest of the month, like how's that going to fly? And who's going to, are we expected to document exactly what they've done and what they haven't done every day? Because that's a lot of data that I'm going to have to collect.
Yes, it is, but yes, you need it.
Yeah, like I kind of keep an attendance log. Like I just have like a little notebook, and even I plug it in the system. I write down, okay, I think Lisa, you're probably the same way. All of us have a handful of kids who are sparsely coming or haven't come yet. I've got, you know, it's pretty shocking actually how many kids. Sometimes you like contact the parents and you get a hold of them the best you can. But as long as you're documenting and you're showing like you're trying to like make contact and kind of see what's up.
I wasn't speaking of attendance per se. I was talking about the work.
Yeah, I know what you mean, Diane. I have some of those too. And the thing that I love about virtual learning is it takes that accountability for the students doing the work because they're at home with their family. If you are doing your due diligence and telling the parent what's happening and still nothing is happening, you're holding the parents and the students accountable, and it's probably the first time that's happened. So there's going to be pushback, but if you are documenting and you're keeping track of it and you've told the parents they're not doing, what else, what more can you do, right? You can't go to their house and force them to do their work. All you can do is document it and make sure the parents are aware.
I think that's what Mike was saying too. Like when he is talking about contacting and making those contacts, it wasn't just about attendance. I think it was about them actually turning in their work. And if they're not turning, it's going to be a little bit easier, I think, for this situation, not for as a virtual teacher, but as a bricks and mortar teacher coming into the school, because those relationships are already developed with their parents, and the principal at a bricks and mortar school has less students, way less students to address those issues with. And so I think, connecting with the parents, connecting with the principal, and maybe, like, if necessary or appropriate, the resource teacher, and doing some planning right off the hop for those students, because it is a big worry. And I assume there's going to be new teaching next week, not expected to be just reviewed. And so you don't want to let that, like,
and that is gonna, and I think we will, that will be happening. It was just for this week was the review. I think going forward, it's going to have to be new material.
Does that answer your question, Diane, or no? Yeah, that's okay. Okay, so
we do have a question. Sorry, there's a question in the chat. How should attendance work? We've been told not to worry about attendance. Mark everyone present. I have kids who haven't been on at all, and some who come in morning block and don't come back at all, or come back at the end of the day.
I'm sorry, I can't help but giggle because I just see Mike and Lisa's faces, and they've just been through it for so long, and it's been difficult. And so I'm going to let them speak to that.
Keep records of what they're doing, because you will want to have that data.
Something I do, I just take screenshots, and I have like a PowerPoint. So like around 9 o'clock, I take a screenshot, and then at 5-10 minutes after lunch, I take just a screenshot of the meet, and I have that saved into a PowerPoint presentation. So I just kind of save those photos in there. So there's been a few times when the kid's not in the meet, and then the phone call goes home, so your kid's not at school, and the parents email, oh, he's right there in the computer. And I can be like, look, I took a screenshot. He's not in the meet. He's not here. He may be on the computer doing whatever, but he's not with me. So if you can record it, I mean, there's so like hundreds, like it happens all the time, right? Kids might show up, and you're like teaching, you're looking at another screen. You don't know if they've gone to the bathroom, if their internet's cut out on them. You have no idea. So you kind of have to roll with it. That's part of, I guess, one of the downsides. It's really hard to kind of keep track of students all the time. Like it's easy for them to slip out or go away and come back like 20 minutes later if you're teaching or looking at a screen or not. Because you're not always going to be paying attention to your meet. It's just kind of the way it is.
Christine, what?
And they also,
Lisa,
sorry.
No, go ahead, Lisa.
They also learn very quickly that they can turn off the volume on the meet, and they appear to be in the meet all day long, but they do nothing and they're not listening. I would also recommend looking into the Google Meet attendance extension that will track your meet attendance as well.
Oh, I didn't know that. Christine's also asking, how do you do the screenshot? Do you take it with your phone? Do you do it with, it depends.
I just use print screen on my keypad. So I just do print screen. So that's going to save it. And that's why I save it into I just use PDF because I like it. And then I just paste the picture there. And then it's there. So I just take a screenshot with I just put print screen. I'm like on my meet. And it's usually right before Okana. That's usually when I have my best numbers. So I just click print screen there, and yeah, I just save it save them. So I just like, you can go back, and it's nice because it's time, like at the bottom of the corner, you got the time and the date. So you can be like, look, it's 9 o'clock. It's Thursday at
Can I ask
9.
Lisa a question about Google Extension, the attendance one. I have it, but I can't seem to move it off the screen. It's always there and it's kind of in the way.
Yeah, it doesn't ever disappear. I just drag it down right into the very bottom and cover up the host control button in Google Meet, and that seems to be the easiest place for it to sit. And then I just drag it back up when I need to look at it.
Okay, thank you.
It's interesting because it all depends, Christine, on what device you're presenting from. Because if you're on an iPad and you're presenting from your iPad, you're just gonna, and even depending on the iPad, what version of it is how you take the screenshot, right? On mine, I'm on a MacBook. I press Command-Shift-4 to take a screenshot. So it's all different. That's the challenge they've had.
Teen shared that website too that we can probably put into our notes. Remember yesterday in his Google Meets in his presentation? Wasn't there one about that screenshot website?
Yeah. Melissa Dent said she has a screenshot slide that tells you how to take a screenshot from a laptop, from a tablet, and from a iPad,
Right.
Chromebook. So I can share that into the session notes for sure.
I use an extension in Chrome called Web Clipper. That's how I do it.
Yeah, and Greenshot was Denise's. And
Right, that's it. Greenshot. Thanks, Denise.
yeah, there's so many different things you can do. It's just whatever makes sense for you. Since we're talking about extensions, why don't we go to that? Mr. Accordingly, do you want me to share my screen, or do you want to share your screen to talk about those extensions?
You can share your screen, yeah.
I'm going to exit out here then, if I can. Okay.
I just I don't use too many. It seems like Lisa actually uses a bit more,
Yeah.
but I just have a couple of good ones that I really like. So if you don't know anything about, I can share my screen, I guess. Why don't I do my screen?
Okay.
I can just show you the few ones that I have. So I just click share screen at the bottom, yeah?
Yep.
Yep.
All right. Oh yeah, here we go. This looks familiar. All right, where do I want to be? I think I want that one. Okay, and I think, can you guys see like at the top here?
Oh yeah, look at them all.
Yeah, so I got a few, some of them just, I don't know, appeared, I don't remember putting them on, but the big one I use is this one right here. So if you don't know how to use Chrome extensions, whenever you're in Chrome, you just click this little puzzle piece here, and you've got them all kind of along the side, and then you've got little pin buttons, and that pins them up at the top. So they're just little like add-ons, like almost like apps that do different things with Chrome. So they're kind of handy that way. If you're signed in here, like this M here, if I click on this has me signed in as like my school email. So that's good. So all the stuff that I have at school that I've been using I signed in here. It brings it all to my home. So that's great. So make sure you're signed in that little circle there. And then you should have all your extensions. So a couple of these, everyone I think has got read and write. I think that's standard for the board. So I think we all know that one. The big one I use, which was like a game changer, I didn't have it on day one. And then I talked to Melissa Den. I was like, oh, maybe I should put some Melissa on this one. It's called, I think it's Google Grid View, but it's in parentheses fix. There's two of them, I believe. So you want the fix one. And it's a green, it looks just like that. That's the logo. So all you have to do, I can just do it right now. You just Google Grid View fix. It's right there. So I just click it. It's in the Google Chrome store. And then this will just say like install or download or something like that. And you just click that button there, and it'll pop up in this menu here, and then you just pin it, and then it shows up top. And what that does, super simple. It just allows you to see all your kids at once, and they're sorted alphabetically. So
I am going to interject and interrupt for a second there that the latest Google Meet update added that feature into Meet, so you don't necessarily need that extension anymore.
there you go. Don't even need it.
I still use it too, Mike.
Yeah.
I find it easier than the Meet, but it is already in Google Meet now.
Okay. Cool. So you don't need it. Just forget everything I said. This is another like obsolete one, but you may want it for fun. It's called nod reaction. So when do they add the hands up? Like December maybe?
Yeah, just before Christmas.
Just before Christmas. So before there was no way of like just silently like indicating anything in a Google Meet. I think Zoom and what's the Teams one have it, but Google didn't. But now they have a hands up. But this is still fun. This allows kids to like clap, like cheer, give a hands up. It's just called
the name.
Oh, sorry.
Could you
Yeah.
Sorry, no. Yeah. Thanks, Lisa.
And then the other super handy one, especially if you're doing group work, is this mute tab extension. So Chrome used to have this on its own, but I don't know, in the last year or so, they got rid of it. So this is really handy. What this does is it just mutes the tab you're in. So as you can imagine, if you are in a meet, or like if you set up a bunch of meets for say group work and you got kids in different meets and you want to hop between them, the kids are going to be able to hear everything from all the other meets while you're trying to talk to someone. So that's a handy one if you want to mute a certain tab. So if I'm doing group work, I'll have a few meets going and I'll just mute them all. And the one I pop into, I unmute, I talk to them. That's great. I mute it. I go to the next one. So this one can be a little glitchy sometimes, I find, but overall, I think it works pretty good. Lisa, I don't know if you have another alternative to that.
I use the breakout extension, and it takes a little bit of time to learn how to use it. It's not the most user-friendly thing, but it is the best way to control multiple Google Meets because it takes your video and your camera and your volume from multiple meets and filters it through one website. And you can flip back and forth between as many meets as you need. And you don't have to worry about your volume and your mic and your camera. It does it all for you in one place. And it allows you to do small groups. And it was much easier through that extension than having multiple meets on my screen because I kept mixing up my microphone and my camera and stuff.
Yeah.
Lisa, are you talking about the tab resize? Because I use tab resize.
Nope, this one's called Breakout.
Okay.
And the last one, I didn't have this, but a lot of my students told me about it. This is it's similar to Read and Write. It's the same, I guess, company. It's the Text Help PDF reader. And I think probably most of the students have it. Maybe most of you guys might have it. I didn't know about it. We were trying to do some stuff on PDFs early in the year. And the kids were like, Mr. C, just use this extension. I'm like, all right. So they kind of showed me how to use it. And that just basically allows students to like write on the PDF. So they can do that already with the iPad. So if they're on an iPad, it's not a really big deal, but that one can help them read and write on PDFs too. So
I think that's the one that the assistive tech team uses when they do Snapverter. You have to have that one installed in order for it to work.
Okay. So like this one, I think a lot of students have that already, especially if they are using assistive tech, they'll probably already have that. And like I said, when I was trying to figure out PDF stuff on one of my stressful early days, when things just weren't working, like my students came to rescue me. So that's going to happen as part of like being a virtual teacher. You're going to have all this stuff planned and it's just going to blow up in your face. It just happens. So you just have to get used to it and laugh it off, and the kids get it because it's going to happen to them too. And just the way it goes, you learn from it.
Any other ones, Lisa, that you have?
I use Screencastify a lot as an extension.
Yeah.
It's probably my number one. But yeah, Screencastify and this web clipper for the screenshots, and then Breakout for my small groups.
Thank you. Okay, we have not finished everything, but let's go back and see what we've got here. maybe we should go to these. I think we should go to these, Teresa. What do you think?
Sure, if you want to.
Yeah, I think it's like there's been so. So you go ahead, Teresa.
Well, we just wanted to have some gratitude we have a lot of virtual and brick and mortar teachers doing great things. And we just wanted to recognize 2 teachers in particular today that have done some fabulous things. So we have Melissa Dent and Janessa Latham, who did not give me her Bitmoji today, but so we can start with her. She created a Google Translate, and that really helps out my kids, our kids, our ELLs. So she made a little quick video how to support Google Translate to support ELLs and Google Meets. And we're going to show it. Okay, it's a bit, yeah.
There's Janessa right there, so we don't even need her. Her face right here. We're going to watch her video.
Yeah, it's a little embarrassing for me, but here we go.
Miss Letham here, and I got a great tip from my friend Teresa Lopatron to help out our English language learners. All you have to do is right-click, go to Translate to English. Up here now we have a new icon called GT, Google Translate. Click the 3 dots, choose another language, and drop-down menu, Translate. And now you'll notice, look, German.
I can't see it.
That's not even the magical part.
Can you see
now, when I click the captions,
here it goes.
Make sure you're unmuted. I am speaking English and it's coming out in German. This is something you would teach the student how to use. To go back to English, all you have to do is go back up to this GT, 3 dots, choose another language, English, bada boom, bada bing, we're back to English.
But it's so nice to have teachers that are taking the lead and sharing these things with us. And then this is created by Melissa Dent. It's a virtual teacher resource.
In this video, I'm going to show you how to present your
school. You want to hear that? So she's created this like in record speed. She created this site. So if you haven't accessed this site, I think it's really useful because she's gone through everything that you're going to be going through in the next 2 weeks. And there'll be some really useful things here for you. So if you scroll down, she talks about, these are some of the things she could not live without. So go there. I know I've heard clearly from the virtual teachers and Melissa, don't create anything, steal it and replace yourself because it's so much time. So I know Mrs. Parks, the slides, there's so many things in here that you can just snag and use. See how she's got her schedule laid out so then you can know, how to organize it for your students. And then she goes through timing, attendance. She just kind of lays out some struggles that you might experience and then how to get through it. There's announcements, there's free resources. I thought this Google stuff was pretty interesting. Okay, we'll just go there. There we go. It's coming. It's just a little slow. And under this, she has like tips for the different things. So general Google issues, general Google Meet issues, and she's got it color coded. And so then there's just tips. Remove students from Google Meet, how to record a Google Meet, priority workspace in Google Drive, remove account from Google. So a whole bunch of things to help you make your life easier. Incredible. And then under tech tips, she is like the SysOp for the virtual school. So if there's a common problem, pretty sure she's going to place it here and it's going to be very useful for you. So I think that will probably be a go-to that I'm going to be accessing when I get questions. And there's just so much in here. So we just wanted to show you that really quickly. And I think that's probably enough because it's already 3:55. So,
And, sorry,
and questions there?
So I just put the bit.ly into the chat. Also, the director, I think, is going to make the final, what was that message? Hold on one second. Another email from the director. More is coming regards to our 2 weeks. So we'll stay tuned and we'll probably find out more tomorrow.
Yeah. And if you have questions, you know, forward them to us or to your principal.
I just want to say, I guess you guys asked me yesterday to kind of like think about what I would change from what I wish I knew then that I know now.
Yeah.
And I asked some of my like students that what has it changed? And I think the big thing I've been thinking about it over the last day and a half or whatever, is that you have all the stuff here, and it's really in the end it's not too different. It might feel different, but you're just in a different space, but everything you're doing is pretty similar. And so just take your time adjusting it, right? Like you don't have to be this great virtual school teacher on day one. None of us got there, right? And when in doubt, like just rely to your like old faithful stuff. Like try something new. I would say find like one good like digital math smartboard to use, whatever one you want to use. Find one good one, and then just kind of like from there you can kind of build your math program and then add different stuff as you go along. But just kind of keep it as simple and just add stuff slowly, because a lot of your like we've been using smart boards and things like that for years now. So a lot of this stuff still translates to the digital world. So just keep it, adjust slowly, add slowly to your repertoire. Don't worry about using 10 new extensions. Maybe try one this week. Okay, that I kind of got to handle it. The kids know how to use it. Let's try something out next week. So next week, we're going to try and break into smaller groups. And just like tell your kids up front, like, I don't know how this is going to go. We're going to try making smaller groups. It might work, it might not. Let's learn from it, because that's what we all been through. So just, yeah, you have all your information there. You guys, especially like you've been teaching the same grade for a while, you have like all your activities and everything you need for material wise. It's just kind of tweaking a little bit how you kind of present it virtually, but it just takes a little bit. And then once you get comfortable with that, then you can add the sizzle.
Yeah.
Mike, that's good advice.
Yeah, definitely. Great way to end. Thank you so much, Lisa and Mike, for joining us today. And thank you. I know maybe they'll get it passed on to them, but if you see Melissa Dent or Janessa, you can thank them too.
You guys got this. No problem. Piece of cake.
Thank you. Yep.
Mhm.
I'm going to stop sharing. Hey, thanks again so much. We'll